With Dr. Lecter eluding capture at the end of 2001's Hannibal, the idea of further sequels became repetitive. Despite this, producer and rights holder Dino De Laurentiis was quick to continue the franchise, having all the pieces in place for a remake of Red Dragon. Red Dragon, directed by Brett Ratner, was released in 2002. Like Manhunter before it, the film follows the investigations of ex-retiree Will Graham in his hunt to catch serial killer Francis Dollarhide, aka the Tooth Fairy. Unlike Manhunter, Red Dragon adapted Harris's material more faithfully, re-implementing references to both William Blake's painting, The Great Red Dragon and the Woman Clothed in Sun, as well as Dollarhide's tormented childhood. As a welcome addition to the source material, Dollarhide's deeper level of emotional complexity leads to his undoing at the film's climax.
Say I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm a dirty little beast.
Like Dollarhide, Hannibal's role in the film was expanded beyond his role in the novel. By prefacing the film with a flashback, Red Dragon provided further context to Graham and Lecter's complex relationship, and finally showed audiences how the infamous cannibal was apprehended. As in Hannibal before it, this sequence plays off what audiences already know of Lecter to create both humor.
What is this divine-looking amuse-bouche?
If I tell you, I'm afraid you won't even try it.
And suspense. Furthermore, Hannibal's continued involvement with the Tooth Fairy case file revives his relationship with Graham and gives a voice to the protagonist's deepest psychological fears.
No one will ever be safe around you, Will.
As always, Hopkins brings us a seductive Hannibal with measured intensity and magnetic charm. The expanded relationship between Lecter and Graham heavily links Red Dragon to the Silence of the Lambs, and this connection is further emphasized through the film's teasing ending.
A young woman says she's from the FBI, though she's far too pretty, if you ask me.
What is her name?
Moreover, Red Dragon knowingly emulates the style of Silence in several areas, including its nuanced performances, gothic production design, and suspenseful score, even sharing its scriptwriter Ted Talley, making it a favorable return to form for the franchise. Now out of material to adapt, Dino De Laurentiis instructed Thomas Harris to write an origin story for Lecter, or else another writer would be hired to do so. After much hesitation, Harris eventually wrote and published Hannibal Rising in 2006, and a film adaptation was released the following year. Adapted by Harris himself, Hannibal Rising tells the story of Lecter's upbringing, covering a lot of ground both literally and figuratively. In Lithuania during World War II, Hannibal's parents are killed, and his sister Misha is eaten by stranded Nazi deserters. 8 years later, in France, Hannibal becomes the ward of his widowed Japanese aunt, is given a scholarship to medical school, and eventually exacts revenge for the murder and desecration of his sister. Rising marks the first time Lecter became the sole lead of a film. Unfortunately, the story overindulges in its character's violent tendencies, and Rising's Lecter comes across as excessively smug. Throughout the film, the franchise's trademark sense of suspense is completely destroyed, as any tensions are either resolved with unexplained psychological trickery or outlandish violence. Eschewing the franchise's murder mystery roots, the film takes the form of a period revenge tale, only to clumsily wink at viewers in a reminder that they are, in fact, watching a Hannibal Lecter film. Despite any proficiencies in its performances and production, the film's sympathetic story destroys much of Lecter's fearsome mystique, making Hannibal Rising a lackluster addition to what seemed to be an exhausted franchise. After a 6-year hiatus, and with Hannibal's life having been fleshed out from childhood to middle age, the Lecter canon was ripe for remaking. With Dino De Laurentiis having passed away in 2010, his wife and production partner, Martha De Laurentiis, was put in charge of the franchise and sought to bring Harris's stories to television. At the helm of this TV series was visionary show developer, writer, and executive producer Brian Fuller. Broadcast in 2013, Hannibal's first season explored the relationship between Dr. Lecter and Will Graham as they worked together to investigate numerous serial killings, including the beginnings of the mysterious Chesapeake Ripper. In Season 2, an institutionalized Graham works to convince his former colleagues that the Chesapeake Ripper isn't himself, but rather the man who has elaborately framed him, Hannibal Lecter. Unfortunately, Graham's warnings inspired too little action too late, and the first half of Season 3 focuses on Hannibal's refuge in Europe, as well as his eventual capture. Finally, the later half of Season 3 covers the events of Red Dragon. Played by Mads Mikkelsen, Hannibal's Dr. Lecter acts as a wolf in sheep's clothing. Fuller purposefully downplayed Hannibal's villainous side to build suspense by placing an unpredictable and manipulative killer alongside the show's main protagonists.
Well, next time, bring your wife. I'd love to have you both for dinner.
The series' main focus, however, is Will Graham, played by Hugh Dancy. Graham's ability to empathize with a killer's mind makes him an intuitive investigator, but the mental fragility this skill creates makes him susceptible to Lecter's expert mental prowess. In Hannibal, Fuller brings his usual stylish flair and ornate sense of design, embellishing the show's world by visualizing its characters' mental processes and gruesome violence to the fullest. Furthermore, Fuller's series reinterpreted many of the canon's characters and events through gender swaps and chronological reshuffling. In doing so, he successfully reinvigorated Hannibal for a new generation. While Fuller had originally hoped to cover the franchise's entire literary saga and beyond, Hannibal was plagued by poor viewership. Though it pushed the boundaries of what a network cable show could do, much of its target audience had already made the switch to streaming services. The series was cancelled by broadcaster NBC in 2015. However, once rights issues dissolve in August 2017, Fuller hopes to revive the series, presumably for the story arc of The Silence of the Lambs. Over the years, the Hannibal Lecter franchise has provided an uneven, yet deeply interesting experience. As one of horror's best-loved villains for over 25 years, it seems that Dr. Lecter's fans will always have room for more.
Bon appetit.